So, we are group 4. May the 4th be with you.
Yep.
Our provocative statement is all U.S. public schools should begin comprehensive sex education at elementary school levels. And our group ultimately decided to agree with the statement where we think that there should be an established and comprehensive sex education in all elementary school levels. So that is on slide 2. And to the next slide we are.
Slide 3.
Laura?
Pass the avocado.
Okay, so we found a couple statistics.
Broke the avocado.
I was gonna make coffee.
Alright, back to the project.
Yeah, so when I was researching, I found some information that said between 1991 and 2014, birth rates decreased, and that was a benefit of comprehensive sex education. And then it also talked about how evaluations show that sex education and HIV/STI prevention programs don't actually increase sex initiation rates, and it also doesn't lower the age in which you initiate in sex. And I think that's a lot of the issues that parents might have with their students taking comprehensive sex education, but since studies prove that that's false, then.
And who did those studies?
I really don't know.
Effective sex education.
Effective sex education.
I wanted the avocado. Got the top of avocado.
So a lot of problem with like parents not wanting their children to have this sex education is probably because of the wrong statistical evidence that is not proven to be true, which states that sexual education like has a greater, what am I trying to say? Makes it higher.
Like, because they're more
more
exposed.
exposed, yeah.
So they know more, and they're more exposed, so they know more.
Which
Pass
is
me
not
avocado.
true.
Okay, so like and another thing that I found, just like another statistic that I found was like 22 states and the District of Columbia have already implemented like sex education, and like in regards to like parents or whatever, 35 of those states allow their parents to like be involved or like opt out, opt their children like out of the like thing. So it's like we're implementing it, but we're giving the parents freedom. So like their opposition to it like wouldn't make sense because they have the freedom to like be involved or like opt their children out. So
Passing the avocado to tea.
If you would like
Oh my
it,
gosh.
here you go. Give it to me. Stop them.
Where's the avocado?
Don't squeeze it. Don't squeeze it.
No, I didn't. Alright, so from my viewpoint, as I said in my previous video, that I agree with this statement because personally, I think it is a good thing to make children now they know accurate information about sex, and I think they also should have opportunity to develop their values, attitude, and belief about sexuality. And the last thing that I want to mention is that children should know how important to practicing safer sex is. And however, I understand if some people think differently since they might be concerned that their kid will not do an appropriate thing, but
Right.
I'm sure they do. They don't need to worry if they know that their kid will be educated by someone professional.
Right.
That's a great transition to our next slide, which is sexual orientation in today's society.
We probably should have did a timer, but you know.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
No, we don't have to.
Today's society and like sexual orientation, it's a lot more open and a lot more talked about than it was like personally when I was growing up and stuff. So it's getting almost even more important that children are aware of their sexual orientation and like all about like what sexual orientation is, which is part of sexual education, which a lot of people don't know about. And
It's fine. We're good. Just keep talking.
so so
Wait,
it's
is
done. We're good.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, keep moving.
Okay, so that was a great viewpoint. I also want to add on that that I found from, her name is Michelle Isidore, and she said yeah, you want to put it back in? Oh my god.
Guys, keep going.
So Michelle Isidore, she said that the best way to educate a child is through like your personal, like a parent's own viewpoint of how that should be done, instead of sticking to some traditional rules of, this is how sexual education should be taught, or at this age, whatever it is. So she said that's the best way to even prevent sexual violence, is just having that one-on-one conversation with your family.
And that can also help with like them understanding like their values and attitudes and beliefs, is taking a more personal approach to it rather than just kind of looking at it logically and like saying these are the facts, but allowing them to talk about their beliefs and stuff, which is not usually something that's allowed in educational environments.
Like another reason that we feel, or like I found that would be like a good idea to like implement sex education, is just because of like the issues that are so like apparent today with like gender neutral bathrooms and like stuff. It's just like more openly talked about, and they should have that like background and that kind of, and then also Sydney.
What I was just going to add on to that is a lot of people don't know what sexual education actually is. So it's hard for parents to know what their kids are going to be like taught in school, because it's it's not clear. According to Future of Sex Ed, sexual education is actually consistent of healthy versus unhealthy relationships, understanding your body and valuing it and its orientation, protecting academic success, and not forming opinions based on sex. So there's, and obviously our point about sexual orientation is huge in that people don't realize that that's a part of sexual education, not just about the birds and the bees, which a lot of parents are, that's like a reason why parents are hesitant.
And there's also like a huge health and safety aspect to all of this, which,
do you have something to say, T?
I think I forgot to mention the website that I referred to, so I don't want to be patronizing. So the website is communityactionkids.com. If you guys would need more information.
Do you want to take over health and safety, or do you want
You want to start it?
to start it? Just kind of what I found out with health and safety from like the futureofsexed.com or whatever, is just kind of like teaching young people like just kind of the ins and outs of it will help them to like reject like unwanted like sexual advantages, and like how like alcohol and drug use like can like affect those kind of things, so then they're like aware that like this kind of like leads to this.
A lot of it has to do with just being aware of it. Just being aware of like the health and safety risks of sexual activity that children should know about. Like I feel like there's never too early, as long as they understand it. And like if they're starting to be curious about their bodies, like they should probably be like informed about what it actually can like happen if you continue with sexual education.
I found an article. I know it's on our 15 source thing, I just can't find it, but it talked about the different like the different stages of sex education. So even for somebody as young as like first grade or kindergarten, they wouldn't be learning about like the stuff a fourth grade or fifth grade would be learning about, but more like safe touch, unsafe touch, and things like that. So I think that's another
very like grade oriented.
Just add on to that really quickly too. I think that ultimately, like the broad idea of this is healthy versus unhealthy. Whether that be physically, there's an example that I found where it's, with relationships. That's also something I learned personally at my school, was like healthy versus unhealthy relationships too. So, I think, are we ready to? Did you already mention your opposing idea?
That's next. On the next slide is an opposing view. So one of the articles that I read was based off of a review done on 12 studies spanning 15 years. And it was based off of the interventions of several different programs about abstinent behavior and sex ed. And the main thing about that was they looked at a whole bunch of different criteria, it's still recording, different criteria, and they made mathematical formulas and stuff for everything. And all that they really got from it was that there wasn't much of a change. So the only influence they saw actually affecting the kids and their behaviors was when their parents got involved and were telling them what they should do. But they kind of contradicted themselves in saying their final conclusion was that studies aren't the most effective way to figure what to do about sexual education. It should be kind of based on what people think and like their gut feeling and common sense. And that was from the effectiveness of school-based sex education programs study, which was part of a health education research activity.
We're going to like who
Yeah.
loses.
Yeah.
Who loses out. Just kind of like it's just the people who lose out is just kind of like one of the people that is technically like feeling like they're losing out is the pediatricians, and they're kind of feeling like their toes are being stepped on because they're not given like the opportunity that they had before to like teach their patients this. They're like losing like parent patient provider like connection, like they're losing that connection because the kids think that they've learned it all in school and they don't ask.
And they just base their information kind of on that.
And then another group is like traditionalists, so people who don't want their children to be exposed to it, maybe want to shelter them a little bit longer.
Yep.
They lose out because they just
They
lose
don't-
that opportunity.
Yeah, they don't get to parent their way.
Kind of adding on along with that is individuals or parents even who have differing viewpoints due to religious beliefs, backgrounds. I know with when I went to religion school, I was Catholic. We kind of learned, basis of sex and like abstinence and whatnot too. But a lot of that was more like negative, like you weren't exposed to relationships, the multiple things with that too.
And then another point with like who's losing out would be like parents unfamiliar or uncomfortable with what sexual education is as a whole. Like we talked about earlier, is like they're losing out on what they believe is like the right parenting and like what actually is sexual education. And a huge thing that I found was like that Planned Parenthood has a really good website about like educating what actually is involved in talking about sexual education, and that like kindergartners are not they're not being taught the same exact thing as the older kids are being taught about. They're just learning about themselves first.
All right. So moving on past our topic is the process of this.
So, we all discussed earlier before we started videotaping, but I'm speaking a little on my own too. I found the process quite an experience as far as it being enjoyable. And we talk about community a lot, and it still feels like a community even outside the classroom. And so.
I mean, we learned how to have everyone on and off the balcony at different times to balance the viewpoints, and like the video as well, just so that it's not people trying to chime in at the same time. Next one.
Just pass me on.
Going off of that, we learned how to lead from behind. Sometimes it's not always, what's the word? It's not always useful
Yeah, to have everyone leading at the
to
same
have,
time.
or the same person always leading. Sometimes it's nice to have rotation.
Okay. Oh, Mel's got it.
Oh, yeah. And then just like another thing is just like the process of like what we're implementing in class is just kind of like leaving our comfort zone, talking about. It was nice to like talk about something that you wouldn't normally like speak about. Usually people are comfortable, and it was just like,
Yep.
So our challenges that we kind of found with it, working amongst each other.
Other leaders.
Yeah. Differing viewpoints arose. Right? Am I using the right word?
Yeah.
Arose. Okay.
arose.
And that ultimately kind of made it a little difficult, but also time and schedules was the most difficult too. So.
Nuggets. So yeah, that was Can you just quickly tell us in our last 30 seconds the 3 class concepts that we applied?
Okay, so we said that there is no comfort in the growth zone, and there is no growth zone in the comfort zone. Talking about topic that can be uncomfortable, and also leave it and getting on and off the balcony. And lastly, we talk about learning to step outside of your comfort zone.
Yep.
Bye!